recording again and go on mute and start that video up for you.
Welcome. My name is James Brailsford. I'm an educator here at the Von Braun Planetarium. Before your presentation gets started, I would like to give you a historical introduction to the Von Braun Astronomical Society, or as we call it, VBAS. In 1954, Sammy Pruitt, a 16-year-old Huntsville High School student, asked Dr. Werner von Braun, "Could you give me some advice on how to start an astronomy club?" Von Braun, who always loved new ideas, said, "Of course, I'll be happy to." Von Braun gathered some of his rocket scientists together and proposed the idea of starting an astronomy club. The scientists were excited. Over the next 2 years, several planning meetings were held. They raised $3,000 in cash and $8,000 worth of building materials to begin the Rocket City Astronomical Association, which was later called VBAS. They had to choose a location for the observatory. Dr. von Braun said, "It must be close to town so people don't have far to go. However, it must be protected from city lights as much as possible. And it must be away from heavy traffic, and most of all, it must cost nothing." They chose our current location on the northeast edge of Monte Sano. It is on 13.5 acres of state park property. The club was given a 25-year lease for $1. In 1956, construction started on the observatory. Club members started clearing a couple hundred trees. James Record, the county commissioner at the time, sent bulldozers up to the site. They built the road and cleared the space and made it ready for building at no cost to the club. A long-time co-worker of Dr. von Braun, Wilhelm Angela, drew up plans for the building and dome. Most of the construction was done by club members, including Dr. von Braun. The dome was built off-site in a hangar at the Redstone Arsenal. When completed, the dome was transported up the mountain and lifted in place by an Army crane. The new observatory was inaugurated in 1957. Here is the observatory today. We call it the Swanson Observatory after Dr. Conrad Swanson, our first observatory director. Over the last 15 years, the observatory has gone through extensive restoration and reopened in October 2011. Currently, it houses a 21-inch Newtonian f4 telescope. The telescope uses 3 video cameras for pointing and collecting images. When the telescope is in operation, there's a large screen in the foyer for public viewing. The Swanson Observatory has the only restroom in the VBAS complex. As you enter, the observatory door is located by following a short hall at the base of the stairs on your left. Follow the signs. After your presentation, weather permitting, we will be viewing celestial objects through a C16 telescope. To get to the C16 telescope, you will need to climb the staircase to the roof. Let's go! This is the C16 telescope. This telescope is a piece of Rocket City history. The C in its name represents a company that made it. It was built in 1967 by a fledgling telescope company of the day named Celestron. The 16 represents the diameter of its objective lens, its mirror. Our C16 is serial number 9 and was made for NASA as one of a pair used for scouting possible lunar landing sites. When NASA retired the telescope, they donated to the UAH, who made an agreement with VBAS to house and operate the telescope for both the public and UAH students. It was installed at VBAS in the mid-1980s. Now let's go to the planetarium. Most astronomy clubs only emphasize the observing aspects of astronomy. Our club is unique. Some members are interested in observing and others in education or both. Because of this, the planetarium was built in the late 1960s. Since that time, we've been giving educational programs for schools, scouting, and civic groups. We currently give public planetarium shows every Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. The star of our shows is the Spitz A3P planetarium projector. This model projector was sold mostly to colleges and schools in the 1960s and 70s. It projects about 1,500 stars and uses pinholes and lens projection for the brighter stars. It was designed for a 24 to 40 foot dome. Our dome is 33 feet. VBAS acquired the projector during the summer of 2011 from Georgia's Walker County School System near Chattanooga. This dome is another piece of Rocket City history. This is a picture of the dome being installed in the late 1960s. The dome is a dummy bulkhead made by Rocketdyne Corporation in California. Rocketdyne produced many of the components of the Saturn V rocket. Among them were the enormous tanks that held the fuel to lift the rocket into space. To try out jigs and other handling gear, as well as mounting procedures for the tanks, Rocketdyne built a dummy bulkhead for a tank of 33 feet in diameter. The dummy was built to match the size of the real tank, but out of a cardboard and resin honeycomb structure that was strong enough to withstand the rough handling during test procedures, but relatively light. The skyline in the planetarium was produced by Wilhelm Angela. The skyline represents the mountains and hills that encircle downtown Huntsville. The most prominent ridge is on the east wall opposite the door you enter through. This is Monte Sano. Our planetarium observatory is located on the northeast side. Round Top is the peak south of Monte Sano. That is where Burrit on the Mountain Museum is located. Sit back and get comfortable. Our presentation is ready to start. If you want to know more about VBAS events, check out our website at www.vbas.org.
Hello? Eric, is that you that wanted me to unmute?
Yeah, I was pressing the wrong button. Sorry. On the wrong little square. So obviously that video is made a few years back. That's the one we normally show before a planetarium show. I wanted to show it just because it shows our observatories and so on for folks who haven't been on listening to some of the earlier stuff we did. Looks like Jeff Delmas is still on. I don't know if you're at your computer, but perhaps you could say a few words about the latest upgrades to the observatories. I don't know if he's still there or not, so for folks who don't know, there's been a program going on to do some upgrades that Jeff Delmas has been leading to the observatory, the Swanson itself, to put digital encoders on so that we can actually have absolute pointing on the telescope. The telescope will always know exactly where it's looking. It's a major project costing several $1,000s, and that's been something that's been in the works. I know he got some of the machined parts back. We've got several companies that are donating their time and talents to build some of the parts for us, which is really cool. So that's something that's being done to try to modernize our observatory and make it a little more repeatable in terms of, as you heard in Fred's talk, calibration and being able to repeatably point your scope without a lot of setup time is important when you only have limited observing hours. So that's an upgrade to the Swanson that will certainly make life a lot easier and observing a lot more pleasant going forward. So that's in the works. So now I'm going to turn it over to Joe Kuttner, who leads our special interest group on astrophotography that meets every second Friday of every month at 7:30. So over to you, Joe.
Thanks.
Oh, there he is. Oh, wow. Okay.
Hi, Don.
Didn't see you there.
Yeah, so as Eric said, we were hoping to do a little live observing. We have a couple of members who have some very interesting cameras that you can they can hook up to their telescopes, and you can see what you would see through the telescope in real time, and they would share their screens. But I also thought, what would be a more authentic astronomy experience than that feeling of disappointment and frustration when you're clouded out? So hopefully we're able to reproduce that as authentically as possible tonight. But we're going to improvise a little bit. I'm going to share some software that I use and I think some others use to plan both observing sessions and astrophotography sessions. It shows you the night sky as it is in real time. And then I think some other folks have some things they'd like to share, maybe Tim or Don Reed or Frank. If you have anything, go, get that ready, and then I'll hand it over to you once I've shown off Sky Safari. So yeah, Sky Safari is the software I was talking about. It's one of a few options for software like this. I think some others are Stellarium and the Sky. This one's available on Mac OS only. It's in the App Store, and I think there's a few different versions of it, from very cheap to fairly expensive, maybe $40 or so. I don't remember. But in any case, it gives you a view of the night sky at both the current time or any time in the future or past. So you can drag it around to see left and right, different locations. You can zoom in and out to get a better view. You can change the horizon. You can see they've kindly included a tree to obstruct my view here, just like in real life. So that's great. We use this to both know what is in the sky at a given time and where it'll be, but to help navigate the skies. So if we look here, oh, and also you can adjust it to sort of represent your viewing conditions. So right now I have the magnitude limited at 8, which is wishful thinking. If I were to pull this back a little bit more, I might see what I would actually see from a location like my driveway. So if I zoom in on, for example, well, first let me set it to the current time. So it has up here 7:40, which is what I had a little while ago. So if I click the now button, you'll see it kind of jump ahead and everything's moved over a little bit. And I can play forward and backward to adjust the time. So if I were to zoom in on an object like Jupiter, I can even get the context of what position the moons are in, and sort of plan for any transits or anything like that. I can even watch as I'm going to go backwards through time so it doesn't set, but you can see the moons move through the night as the time is changing. So we're going back here to 6 o'clock, which probably wasn't visible, but yeah, you get the idea. It's also helpful for determining what time something will rise and where it will rise. So if I look over to the east, I'll see the Pleiades coming up. That's this object over here, which you would be able to see with your naked eye if it were clear. And if we click on it, I can get some information about it is also known as Messier 45, the Pleiades, its magnitude, its size. And its size is important, and I can apply some like a grid view here to help me. If I know the camera I'm using and what, or the eyepiece I'm using, I'll know what to expect to see in the frame or in the eyepiece. So for example, I wanted to try and get an image of the California Nebula and the Pleiades, I can adjust and know what size lens I might want to use. Yeah, so I'd be happy to tour around in the night sky. We can also, I don't know if Tim or Don, if you have anything else that you'd like to share, I'd be happy to hand it off to you if you have that ready.
Hey, Joe, are you able to put your specific telescope and eyepiece combinations into Sky Safari?
Yeah, I think you can. I haven't bothered doing that myself. This is telescope control, I believe.
Can you turn on the overhead lights?
Could I add something to that, Eric?
Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly what you can do. And you can, it is actually very sophisticated. I use Sky Safari extensively. In fact, what I do, and you probably saw them in some of my charts or things that I was doing earlier, you can see these little blue circles that will show the field of view of an eyepiece, of a finder scope. You can even have square fields of view that will show you the exact size of the CCD on any particular camera. So you can download it for a ZWO, whatever, and say, that's the field of view for my eyepiece. And you can even add in the off-axis guider. So you can see, you can plan your entire session to the point where you're showing the CCD sensor of your camera with the off-axis guider. And you can even offset the off-axis guider to the amount that's appropriate for your field of view. So you can plan it out. You can plan the angle that you're going to be taking the photograph at. You can plan all that stuff out. It's really a very remarkable program. I highly recommend it, even though it's only for Macs. That's the only downside. But then it's time for the PC people to know what we've been going through for years.
Yeah,
So anyway.
I use the Sky, but it's fairly expensive. I know there's some other, there's actually some free programs out there for folks don't know, like Carte de Ciel, and I think there's some other ones as well.
Carte de Ciel is the best one, and Stellarium is also a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Stellarium is beautiful. It's one of these programs you look at it and you say, why is this free? I mean, this could be an expensive program. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful program, but it's completely free on all platforms. It's really a remarkable program. Anyway, I don't mean to.
No, I think Don definitely seems to have more expertise than I do. I know that there is a database of telescopes that I've put my telescopes into, but I don't use it to that extent. I just kind of rough it with the the grids that I was showing.
Don, did you have something to present?
Yeah, well, I guess I wouldn't say much, much more than what Fred Herman had to say. A lot of the things that I would say would probably, be a repeat of what he said. I can show you a few things if you want me to share my screen.
Yeah, please do.
He used, for his post-processing, he said he used PixInsight, which is what I use. But I use a different capture software than what he uses. The program that I use for capturing data, during an imaging session, automates the session much like what his does. You can go to bed at 10 o'clock at night, wake up the next morning with all of your data captured and get some sleep. It's called Sequence Generator Pro. It has the same functionality that Don Martin was just talking about, where you can automate, your exposure time, which tends to be a big problem for me. You can set how much data you're going to collect with regards to your filters. One of the things I've been learning recently is that for narrowband, most objects in the night sky are strong in the hydrogen wavelength and weaker in sulfur and oxygen. So, you can vary those, and that software will do all that for you. If I can share my screen just for a second, I'll walk you through a couple of charts that I have. And can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing I would say is if you want to break into astrophotography, find someone that can mentor you. Frank Shank and Casey Good have been guys that have helped me quite a bit. I'm not going to walk you through all these charts, but here's my telescope system. And unlike Fred Herman, I don't have a backdoor observatory. So when he was saying that you get tired of breaking down your telescope every night and hauling it back in and forth, that resonated with me. You see a listing of the equipment that I have here. Depending on what I'm going to shoot, I'll use one of two optical tubes. I use a Paramount mount with an Eagle controller on top. This little computer here, and I'm going to have to get my software to stop trying to advance the screen for me. But I find that that's very helpful. It also allows me to sit inside while I'm imaging, and the Eagle computer, which sits here on top of the telescope, will feed the signal into my laptop via Google remote desktop, so I don't have to sit out in the cold weather to monitor the scope. I can do that from the inside of the house. I have two different cameras, and if every imager that's doing deep sky, you need a guide camera. I use a Lodestar. And then I use PhD2 guiding for guiding. And it's freeware, so I would recommend that. And then I think Eric mentioned the SkyX. I use that for image capture. I'm not going to show you some of this stuff. I would, by the way, if you're going to get into deep sky astrophotography, one of the things that I've learned is I'm staying away from color cameras and I'm going more with monochrome. And there's my workflow. If anyone has any questions about what I'm saying, just drop a note into the chat box and we'll try to answer it later. I'm not going to take you through all this. Exposure time is very important, and I struggled with that. So have some guidance here on exposure guidelines and how to capture the data. This is my first photo that I ever took. I actually hooked up a 35mm camera to my telescope and snapped that photo. I'll just walk you through a couple here. This photo was actually published in the Reflector magazine. It was taken with an 8-ic camera with a Hyperstar setup. Here's a picture of the Horsehead Nebula. This is a mosaic. I recently took this photo. This is the Fishhead Nebula. You see some exposure times down in here. Spent a total of 15 hours on this this image, so you can see that when you're shooting narrowband, given the weather we have here in Huntsville, you have to dedicate several nights to capturing the image that you want. I just posted this to Facebook. Compare that. The Fishhead that I took was 15 hours of data. This is the Bubble Nebula, and I shot this data last week, and you see it's a total of 6 hours. So again, the brightness of your object can help you with your total exposure time, and you see some of the other data there for that object. Kind of get through here. Here's the Trifud Nebula. I shot this summer as well. This is M16, the Eagle Nebula. Again, that's a fairly bright nebula, and that's only 2.75 hours of data collected. So I'm trying to zip through this quickly for time's sake, but I want to stop here on this object here. This is the Western Veil Nebula, and you can see where, from the same data set that I collected, the way you stack and process the image can give you different views. And so you see 3 different color palettes here from the same data set. So we have HOO, SHO, which is the typical Hubble palette, what's referred to as the Hubble palette, and then HSO. Someone mentioned the Deerlit group earlier. Took a picture of that here. When did I shoot this data? August of this year, and that's a total of 2 hours. It's a fairly bright galaxy group, so it's a favorite target for astro imagers. M81 is a very large and bright galaxy, so if you're just starting with galaxies, it's a good target to begin with. This is the Sunflower Galaxy. Gives you some good color when you shoot it. Let me pause here for a second. It's this picture I use is the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you see here in the very lower right, you see this circle here? That's from dust in the imaging train. And so when I stacked and processed this, I didn't have any flat frames to use to calibrate the image with. So this is what's going to happen if you don't use flat frames in your images. You see this circle here. There's another one up here. So that's the ugly part of trying to process images if you don't have any flat frames to calibrate the image with. And here's an object I just am still working on. This object. This is the Silver Sliver Galaxy. Shot this data last week as well. And again, look at the total hours here, 14.25 hours on that galaxy because it's rather dim compared to the other galaxies that you saw. So, Joe, I'll take questions, then back to you. I hope I didn't take too much time up. And I'll stop sharing.
No, not at all. We're pretty free form here, so.
Yeah, I'd like to say something here. I know there's a lot of people who are, there's a lot of names I'm seeing today of people I've never seen before, and I'm hearing people judging by their background images and stuff like that. They've actually got some pretty good equipment, and they're asking some pretty good questions. So I just want people to know, if you want to hook up with these guys, we have the Astrophotography SIG. Joe Kuttner is the coordinator of it. It meets the second Friday. I think it's 7:30, right? You guys are still doing 7:30? Yep. Okay, so you're meeting by Zoom every second Friday. In fact, I want to emphasize, we have something by Zoom the first, second, and the third Fridays of every month at about 7:30. I think it's at 7, they're all at 7:30, I think. So just to let you know, if you really, and the way these SIGs work is there's no speaker. It's just people just hook up and talk about whatever the subject is, you know, astrophotography for the second Friday. So that's what's going on. And Joe's the coordinator, and Don Reed and Frank Shank. And maybe we can even get Fred Herman to show up once in a while, but just show up and just see what it is. You don't have to say anything. Just look at what these guys are doing. You see these images that Don's been putting together. This is awesome stuff. This is amazing stuff, and you can learn from these guys.
Hey, Don Reed, I've got a question for you. Can you give us any pointers or tips on focusing? How do you focus, and is it automated? Do you refocus numerous times as you're collecting data, as the telescope's looking different angles in the sky, et cetera?
Yeah, Eric, it's a good question, and one that is a recurring problem for astrophotographers, because as the image session progresses through the evening, the temperature, of course, changes, which then changes the characteristics of your optics. And unless you have a very well-made telescope they have special glasses, and I'm not an expert in that. Don Martin might know a bit more about the glasses, but so the higher quality of optics that you have, the less susceptible they are to temperature changes. But to answer your question is, yeah, I set up my system to focus every 2 hours. I refocus to accommodate for that. And it's a manual, it's not a manual process. It's automated. The software does it. I don't touch the telescope during the focus routine. What I will do, though, is it's critical when you first set up in the evening to get your polar alignment to focus the telescope properly, so that as you're building most software programs will build a model of the night sky, and you want to have that focus routine done up front so that you get a very precise model built.
Hey, Don Reed, I'm just curious, why would you not just refocus in between every frame?
Okay, another good question. And I assume, Don, you're referring to someone that's imaging with monochrome camera that are using different filters, correct?
I'm asking in general. I don't know the astrophotography well enough to really ask a simple question like that. So I'm just curious as to why. I mean, I would think that refocusing, because I guess the idea is that as your equipment cools and gets colder as the night goes by, metals contract, and although for most purposes that's an insignificant thing, for what you guys are doing, it changes the focus. It changes the physical size of the telescope, and you need to keep refocusing. Is that the idea?
That, and there's another factor that works into that decision as well, and that's this. And I'll answer your question by giving you an example. Let's say I'm shooting monochrome and I'm shooting LRGB. Unless you're using parfocal filters, what you would want to do is you can set your imaging run up to do one of two things. You can either complete all of your luminous filters, then it'll switch filters and go to all your red, and so on and so forth. I typically don't do that because of the weather here. I will cycle through each of the filters and then start that process over again. And I do that because of the weather here. We don't get that much clear weather here, and I want to get data across all channels. But unless you have parfocal filters, you're not going to be able to do that, because each filter will focus at a different focal point. And so a word to the wise, if you're going to make the investment of filters, make sure that you're buying parfocal filters. Astrodon filters are parfocal. I use those, and there's another brand out there called Chroma. But just be aware that if you're going to make the investment, get parfocal filters.
Don?
I would think that all the filter, I mean, the issue is the thickness of the filter, right? You put that filter in the optical path, and it changes where the light focuses on the CCD. And then if, like, for example, with the luminance is just a clear glass filter, right? It's not even a filter, it's just clear glass, right?
Right.
And the only purpose for that is so that it will continue to focus at the same distance and have the same image size. Because if it focuses at a different distance, you're going to have, it's not so much that you have to focus it. The problem is, if it, for some reason, if it causes it to focus further away or further in, the image will be a different size, and so consequently you'll have an issue when you try to stack your images.
You can, and that's a good point, Don. So you would pick up a lot of stacking artifacts. The thickness of the filter, as you alluded to, is even more important when we talk about narrow band filters, because there's a variety of different thicknesses out in the marketplace. If you're curious, I use 5 nanometer filters across all 3 of my narrow band filters. I shoot in HA, hydrogen, and sulfur.
But I guess what I'm asking here is, it seems to me that the issue is, as long as you say parafocal filters, wouldn't that just mean you'd have to get filters that are all the same thickness from the same manufacturer, let's say?
That's what I would recommend, so that the glass is ground to make sure that they focus at the same point across each channel.
Okay. I would think.
Don Reed, can I ask just one question?
Go on, Doug.
You know that nebula you got a picture of? The one that sort of looked like a fish?
Yes.
I identified that as Shapley 2157.
Okay.
And it's called the Lobster Claw Nebula. I looked it up online, but
okay.
It's right. The same picture you got is right in the same place my star chart says it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm glad you got that message.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for me, Joe?
I have one about the Deerlick. So I think I might mix up Stephan's quintet and the Deerlick. Is 7331 a part of the Deerlick?
Yeah, let me go back to because I get them confused as well. Let me go back to my chart here and take a look at it. 7331 is the Deerlick group.
Interesting. So I've been getting that wrong for probably quite some time. Or maybe I've been switching back and forth and I've been right half the time.
Yeah, NGC 7331 is the Deerlick Galaxy group. And I shot that for, I think I put that on Facebook. That's a total of 2 hours of exposure. Shot that with a 1-shot color camera. So it's one of the few images that I shot deep space with a color camera versus a monochrome camera.
Joe, Stephan's quintet is right close in the neighborhood of the Deerlick group. So,
yeah, that sounds right. I think it's much fainter though, right?
Well, it's a compact group, so it's maybe not that much fainter, but it's a very compact group of galaxies.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the opportunity to share some of my images, and look forward to the time when we can get together for a star party and get together and do some imaging.
Mm-hmm.
Are you on mute?
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Don.
No worries.
I think Tim has something he'd like to show us too. If I don't know, Eric, if you can give it over to Tim.
Let's see. Tim, can you share your screen? I don't know if I need to give you permission. I think you already got it.
We can't hear you, Tim.
Yeah, you're not muted, Tim, but we can't hear you. There we go. Heard something anyway. No. Still
I
not
heard some
hearing.
static and then nothing.
Sounded like a mic being plugged in, but nothing after that.
Him. Well.
I may be able to attempt to narrate here for Tim. Tim got a new solar telescope. And I think that's what we're seeing here. No, still nothing.
Yeah, no volume. I know we got a Hydrogen Alpha, Lunt Hydrogen Alpha, I think a 50 millimeter scope, and that looked like a Hydrogen Alpha images. Unfortunately, not a lot of sunspots going on right now.
No, there isn't too many. No, it was pretty clear. They got like one little sunspot, and that was it. Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You're loud and clear.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, this thing right here, it works. It works when I try it out. I test it out before, but every time I hook it up to Zoom, it never works. Yes. And here's the scoping question right here. It's a Lunt Solar System LS50THA Hydrogen Alpha. This is how you once you get into focus, you use this to tune it to get the right right wavelength to it. Here's the little I guess finder scope. You just look at the little, you look for the little bright dot that's supposed to be the sun, and you never look at it like this. You don't do that. Instead, you look at it from the opposite side, and you just look for the dot right there. Now, this is not very good for. It's kind of okayish for visual viewing, and you need a one that's you need like a larger one, maybe like a 6-inch with a solar filter on it or something like that. But it's what's really good for though is getting the whole disk of the sun, even with a small planetary camera like this. So you can actually get the whole disk. So that's it. That's a good advantage of that one. And I got one more video to show you. Are y'all there?
Yep.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Now this next video, it was taken with that Malicam video camera I showed y'all a while back, and with my Explore Scientific Comet Hunter, and I have on there the Star Analyzer diffraction grading filter. And you're supposed to use that to take spectroscopic images and analyze the spectral lines in a star or a planet. But here I decided to do a little bit of artwork with this one. Okay, let me share my screen again. So right here, you can see I have also my Batinoff mask on there as well. So I got it in focus, and so it's in focus with the Star Analyzer 100 on there at the same time, because it makes a pretty picture. Now in a little bit, I'm going to take off the Batinoff mask and just show it without any and just show it with a straight up image of that star. This is Vega, by the way. It's got about a few more seconds. All right. Also, I have one thing that's been kind of, I do have a question for Don Reed.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Oh, well, this is something I've been kind of frustrated with the weather over here, and I've been thinking that I would have been better off getting a one-shot camera so I can get everything at one time. And I've actually thought about selling my other camera and just getting a one-shot. I was wondering what you think about that.
I am big on monochrome cameras. I think that with one-shot color cameras, your exposure times are going to have to be much longer to kind of get the data quality that you would get with a monochrome camera, even though you're using filters. So I am a big advocate of monochrome cameras. Did I answer your question?
So Don,
Kinda, yeah.
so despite the fact that it's requires more equipment, it's more of a hassle to do the photography. You recommend doing it that way, right?
I do, because I think you get a higher quality image at the end of the day. And yeah, it may be more complex, but one of the reasons I got into astrophotography is for the challenge, and I enjoy a challenge. And so I think that it just is something that I enjoy doing, but I think you get a higher quality data set from a monochrome camera for the same amount of exposure time you're using for a one-shot color camera.
Well, that's the thing, though, is the exposure time. That's what I was thinking of, because, like I said, the weather over here doesn't give you too many opportunities to get any pictures. So you want to get as much as you can. So that's why I was thinking about using one shot.
I could show you some examples. I'm not prepared to do that tonight. Because I went through this about 2 weeks ago. I was shooting one night with the one-shot color camera, and I swapped out to my monochrome because the amount of exposure time that I was taking to get the same amount of data that I needed from the monochrome set it just wasn't worth it for me. So maybe at one of our next SIGs, I'll pull together some charts to show you graphically that argument, and I can pull that together.
Okay.
I'll provide a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
I am lazy, and I find a cheap Canon DSLR to be right up my alley. There's no doubt what you're saying is true, though, Don.
Let me say this, Joe. When I got into astrophotography, one of my main rules I wanted to live by was use the equipment that I have, and I don't mean to say, excuse me, that someone who's out there shooting 35 millimeter, for example, can't take good images. They can. Each camera has its advantages and disadvantages, and based upon the kind of optics that I want to shoot, I'm gravitating toward monochrome. But someone else may want to use a 35 millimeter camera or a one-shot color camera for what they're trying to do. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my other goals, maybe it's a challenge in itself, was to not have a laptop out in the field or in my driveway, and the DSLR is great for that. So.
Yeah.
Tim, I'd like to.
But it definitely limits what you can do.
I have a question though. How do you do auto guiding without a computer?
Yeah, I have a Raspberry Pi that runs PhD2 with a small 7-inch touchscreen that's attached to the mount. I built that a couple years ago, but now there are devices on the market, the ASI Air, that essentially do that much better.
The ASI Air, I actually got 2 of those, and they didn't last very long.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just broke like it was nothing. But I do
think
have
I think they released a new version that has like steel case and is much higher quality, probably for that reason. But I haven't used any of them.
Yeah, I use the Eagle 3 controller. It works well. I know Software Bisque just released a single board computer that is designed to ride on your telescope that does the same thing. So there are products out there that will help you do that.
Well, I'll look into. Well, I do have a regular Raspberry Pi, that I bought pretty much. I bought off the internet for $40. I guess I can see if I can't download PhD2 and run it off and run my auto guide with that. Oh, one more thing. Do you use the off-axis? Do you use the off-axis guiding, or do you use a guide scope?
I use an off-axis guider on one of my cameras. It's a QSI camera. That's all built into the camera. And they have a port for your auto guider, and they have a built-in filter wheel. And that's why I like QSI cameras. When I'm shooting with my ZWO camera, which I'm getting ready to upgrade to probably an 8-ic camera, I use a filter wheel and an off-axis guider.
All right.
What else are we going to talk about, Joe?
I think Eric has a short video that he was going to share, if you're ready to, Eric.
Yeah, hold on. So I don't know if Frank was still on or not, but Frank had recorded a couple of weeks ago at the Astrophotography SIG. Frank had shared a short video with us and a still photo for those who are not familiar with you know, seeing conditions and just how objects can focus and defocus. He does primarily planetary photography. So let me share this screen with you. It's a very short video. Couple seconds, but I'll just keep playing it. So, you know, that's Mars. What it looks like through the eyepiece, jittering all about, coming in and out of focus, actually moving about on the screen just from the atmospheric seeing. And then I've got a photo that he shared that you know, is a processed image, and where you can see some nice, amazing detail, and I believe that came from that jittering image with his lucky seeing and, you know, selecting, you know, auto selecting with software the best, you know, 500 images or whatever he used, and then you know, stacking those. So I think it's just an indication of, you know, the difference between your visual photography and your visual, you know, just enjoying the view through the scope, and what you can actually do with all these modern instruments and especially the software that allows you to actually, you know, stack this stuff. That's one of the complaints you hear from new folks, or folks who, you know, out on the observing field after a planetarium show, and you show them something in the scope, and, you know, they say, "Is it that fuzzy thing?" Because they're used to Hubble Space Telescope images that are breathtaking, and like the images Fred was showing earlier, and Don and Frank produced, that are just absolutely amazing, and they look through the scope and they see the jittering mass.
So Eric, if you get a chance, I would like to show one other thing here that kind of ties into what you were just saying, but only from a deep space perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I could share my screen again.
You should be able to.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're looking at here is the PixInsight program. I use this for post-processing. So what I'm going to show you is what an image looks like coming off the telescope. This is the Bubble Nebula. I just shot and posted. What you see here is a, this is the, see here. Yeah, I think this is the hydrogen channel that we're looking at right here. This is, so this is what a deep sky image would look like coming off the telescope. This is an 8-minute exposure of the Bubble Nebula. And so unlike what you just saw on Mars with a video that's shooting several, tens or maybe 100 frames per second, this is a single frame of 8 minutes. And that's what a hydrogen frame would look like. Here is the oxygen channel. You can see that, but it's somewhat dimmer. So the oxygen signal is less than the hydrogen. And then this is the sulfur channel right here in the very center. 480 seconds. So again, I shot 8 minutes on the hydrogen channel and 10 on sulfur and oxygen. When you stack them in the software, it looks like this. So this is the stack of the sulfur channel. Move this over here. This is the sulfur. This is the hydrogen. And then this is the oxygen channel stack. So you can see it stacking cleans it up. And then when you post-process it, you get a photo that looks something like this. So hopefully that kind of gives you a feel for the data that's coming off the telescope, what it looks like after it's stacked, and then what it looks like after it's been combined. And Eric, I'll stop sharing and go back to you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Don. That's insightful. It helps, I think, those of us who wish to one day do astrophotography, give us some good insights to work towards. I know those filters are pretty expensive for really good sets of high quality. So it's something to look forward to down the road. Right now, I just have a color camera that I've played around with a little bit, mainly because I wanted to be able to, as Joe was saying earlier, I'm a bit lazy too, and don't have that much observing time. I don't have a spot of sky in my backyard. I've got a little hole, maybe 20 degrees wide, where there's not trees. And so I need to cart all my stuff up to VBAS or out to Kennemer to actually do anything. And by the time I set it up and tear it down, my actual time for observing is pretty minimal, especially since I forget how to set it up in between observing trips.
Well, this gets back to something you guys were saying earlier in this session today, and that is that it's a plug for membership because VBAS has an SBIG camera that's equipped with narrowband and LRGB filters. They also have, optical tubes up there that you could mate that camera to. What they need to get is a high quality mount that astrophotographers could use on the field out there. But again, that equipment is available to members, and I believe the requirements are that you get checked out on it and get trained to properly use it, and then you can have access to it.
Yeah, Jeff Delmas has been in the process of upgrading the 21-inch facility. It's once they get those digital encoders on, I think it'll be very nice. So there are several folks who are trained up on how to use Tom Derringer's. I don't think he's on right now, but he's one, and I think some of the club kids from UAH are trained up as well.
So Eric, I see a question down here that I would like to respond to. It's from Patrick. He's asking the question: how much time is spent processing the data into the end product? I can answer that question. You're limited by your software, but from the time that I take a look at the initial data from the telescope to the time that I have a finished image, I'll give you the bubble that I just showed you a second ago. That took about an hour from the time that I stacked the images to the time that I looked at them, I stacked them, and I then begin to post-process. About an hour for that process to take place.
Yeah, I even know people who intentionally time box the time they spend on an image because it is the kind of thing you can tweak and tweak and tweak. But really, from where you get the data to something that's really beautiful or something you'll be happy with, in my experience too, isn't much longer than that.
Yeah, the one thing that I've learned in the realm of post-processing is this, that every time you adjust an image with curves and you tweak it, if you get addicted to that, you realize that every time you're tweaking it with curves, you're introducing noise into the image. And so you have to discipline yourself. It's something that I'm probably still trying to teach myself to not, to know when to quit. Did we lose Eric?
I'm not sure.
I think Eric stepped away for a moment.
Okay.
But
All right, I'm going to take a moment to share something a little bit different. We've seen some really incredible equipment and images from Fred and Don and from Tim, and I think it can be intimidating at times. But I always tell people if I have a night in the field where I don't have technical challenges, it's a good night. This is a very challenging hobby, and it doesn't always work out well. So I'm going to show you some of my images. This is the Trifud Nebula. Turned out I had my tracking all wrong and wasted an entire night with images like this. This is the, I think it's M16 back there, yeah. And you can see I had some kind of issue, and every one of my images turned out like this, and I threw away an entire night of data. This, I think I had dew on the lens, and I forgot to use my dew zapper, and M33 is in there, but didn't have much usable data. So yeah, I bring that up just to make sure folks feel encouraged to try and not be put off by the sort of incredible effort and results that folks like Don and everyone get.
Hey, I was putting my best foot forward, Joe, and I could show plenty of images just like the ones that you just threw up, because you're exactly right. It's sometimes it can be a very challenging hobby. There's a lot of moving parts, and what I would encourage people to do, like you mentioned that, you had dew one night. There was one night that I spent 30 minutes troubleshooting my camera, only to realize that I had forgotten to take the cover off the telescope. So those kinds of things happen. You get locked into mentally trying to do something, and your mind takes you to there's a problem with the camera, and you don't bother to look at the telescope to make sure you took the cover off of it. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I've had that happen before.
A dose of reality.
I've had a few
dose of
times.
reality.
I've had a few times where I'm trying to figure, oh, the scene's bad, it must be high clouds or something. I breathed on my eyepiece. It's all fogged up.
I have one more video I want to show.
When I was shooting last week, I forget what image I was shooting. I'm getting ready to post some stuff to Facebook, but I turned to my wife and I said, there's yet another problem with the telescope out there. And I spent probably 15 minutes troubleshooting PhD2, thinking that there was something wrong with my guiding. And I finally thought, I've got to go out there and check the scope because something's not right. And I walked outside and clouds had moved in. Just something that simple, that you troubleshoot and you think so. Those kinds of things happen, but that's part of the hobby, and it's what makes it challenging, but at the same time rewarding, because you get to troubleshoot those kinds of issues and say, oh, wait, so.
The moral of that all is, Don, the reason we do this is because it puts our brain in gear.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it, Otherwise, what are you doing? You're going to watch TV all night long? I mean, you got to do something that puts your brain in gear and activates you and excites you. And that's a big part of what it's all about. I go through this every once in a while about why do I do visual observing? I mean, what's the point of it? But when you go outside and you're just looking through your telescope, it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's just a great way to unwind before you go to bed at night. It's just really a peaceful, mentally de-stressing activity. I mean, what you guys do is a little different than what I do, but you know, the point is you're focusing on something. Your brain is engaged. You're doing something. And what you're not doing is, I don't know, watching TV and just letting your brain turn to mush. You know what I mean? You got to be, especially.
Don, you are absolutely right. I can't tell you how therapeutic it is to be sitting in front of your telescope. And on a nice night, I'll go outside actually and sit with the telescope at 2 a.m. and watch the data come in. And the next thing I know, it's 3 a.m. and I'm relaxed and ready to, ready to go back into the house. But it's very therapeutic.
That's exactly. I mean, to me, it's really meditative, and like I like to make the point to people. Why do you do this? I mean, I've asked myself this question because it's really, this is really kind of a crazy hobby, to go out and look at things that are so faint and so fuzzy you can barely see them, and you're putting a hood over your head to block out stray light, and then another thing you can do is to hyperventilate, and you have all these techniques for seeing these stupid faint objects. And why do you do it? Well, you're trying to do something. You've got a goal and you're trying to do something, and it's just good for your brain. It's good for your soul. It's just good for you to be focused on doing something. And in the final analysis, if it doesn't really work out, it's not that big a deal. If you collect data and your lens cap was on and you wasted your time, well, oh well. You don't want to do that, but it's not like somebody's dying. It's not like you're building something at work and it fails and you lose your job or anything. It's nothing like that. It's not that important, but it does keep you focused and doing something and active.
There's another aspect to it too, Don, and I know you're going to agree with what I'm about to say. And let me just say this to the guys on the line that are fairly new, but you're interested in getting into astrophotography or observing or some other aspect of the hobby. 5 years ago, I knew nothing about telescopes, astrophotography, or basically a telescope. And I went to one of the VBAS Saturday night presentations on that Frank taught. I think it was called So You Got a Telescope for Christmas. And I met Frank, I met Don Martin, I met some other guys, and it's the camaraderie. That's one of the bad things about the COVID situation, but you get together with people who share the same passion that you have, and you learn from each other. I can't tell you how many hours of conversation Frank has had with me, tutoring me, mentoring me, teaching me about everything from how to bend, how to expose the camera, how to polar align the telescope, all those things. And so you make these relationships and you forge these friendships in the hobby, and that's just another rewarding aspect of this thing called VBAS, right?
And it's interesting you bring that up. I want to say something else because I see I've been seeing a lot of names today. I don't know if you guys have been.
Don, you're breaking up.
I saw 40 people at one point.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Okay. How about now? Is it okay now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Maybe I'll turn off the video for a second here. Is that better?
I can still hear you.
Okay,
yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear? Yeah.
So here's what happened. I lived for 20 years in Tucson. I went to the Astronomy Club in Tucson, the TAAA, and those guys, those guys are just real snobs. When I came out here to Tucson, to Huntsville, it was like I was welcomed into this group. This is not a cliquey group. The Tucson group was really cliquey. So and the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen up to 40 people attending today, and it's not the same 40 people. It's like people are mixing it up. So we probably had an attendance today of maybe 60, 70, 80 people who, outside of people like Don Reed and Jeff Delmas and me, the people who are on the board and who are here all the time, the regulars, we probably had, I'll say 60 to 80 people. And this is not a cliquey organization. When you show up to VBAS, nobody is going to turn their nose up at you and not answer your questions or not help you out. This is a very welcoming organization, a very good club from that standpoint. It is extremely inclusive. It's not an exclusive organization. The Tucson group was very snobby. I mean, they had smart people. I mean, you know, that's the center of astronomy, right? So those guys, you know, they're like the cream of the crop, they think. And maybe they are, but it's not fun. It's not fun. VBAS is a really great organization from that standpoint.
Well, it sure helped me because I literally knew nothing about this, and people were very patient. So, again, I would just put a plug in for Joe's Astrophotography SIG. We get together, you know, monthly. It's a time to come forward and ask questions, to show you your equipment, to find out, you know, work you can plug into the group and into the hobby and where you want to be. Maybe you've got a 35mm camera that you want to do something with. We can help you with that. So again, I would just encourage everyone to get involved.
And let me just say one more thing here. I can't emphasize this strongly enough. We meet every Friday except for the fourth Friday. The first, second, and third Fridays, we meet on some level. Either the first Friday is the Observer SIG, which is good for beginners. The second Friday is the Astrophotography SIG, which is a lot of the same people you're seeing here tonight. If you want to ask them questions, that's where they meet, the second Friday of the month at the SIG. This is all by Zoom now because we're all shut down. But I think we're going to keep meeting by Zoom. Some of these groups will keep meeting by Zoom. So Joe Kuttner's the coordinator of that, second Friday of the month. Third Friday of the month, we have our members meeting where we have an organized speaker, okay? But the other two, the first and second Friday, you just show up and hang out and ask questions. That's all they're doing. That's all that's happening. There's no speaker per se. If you have something to share, you share it. If you have questions to ask, you ask them, and that's really all there is to it. And then the fourth Friday, the last Friday, is the Muscle Shoals group, and they're a good group of people too. I can't emphasize that strongly enough. But that's a different club, different links and all of that. But they're meeting by Zoom on the last Friday, not the fourth Friday, the last Friday. Okay, so that's another good group. Anyway, I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
Don, are we going to have members meeting in December, or are we going to skip that like usual?
We will not have a members meeting in December, unless something comes up all of a sudden like last year. But the other thing I would say is that typically for the SIG in December, what we've been doing in the past is we've been having a Christmas party. That's been our Christmas party. I don't know if that's going to happen this year. People are saying that there's no way it's going to happen. Then there's other people who say that the day after the election, the COVID crisis is going to go away. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised at all.
It depends on who you're listening to.
So Don, let me say this, I guess, to you and Joe, and to maybe ask a question of everyone online and kind of maybe get some feedback in the chat window going. But you know, in about 2 weeks, of course, in another week, I apologize for my clock in the background. We're coming up on. We'll be coming up on full moon here in the next week, but I think the week after that, there's some clear weather forecast, and I would be willing to set up and do a Zoom session from start to finish to show people how to polar align a telescope. You know, before it gets dark, we could Zoom that, or maybe we meet up at VBAS and we social distance. I don't know if we're allowed to do that or not, but I would be willing to do something like that if there's enough interest in the group. So if you're interested in doing something like that, let Joe know, or maybe you just put a quick note on the chat window so that's something that you would like to do, and then we can pull that together and have an imaging session.
Wait, I thought you didn't have to social distance if you were wearing those masks.
Yeah, I'm not up on the COVID restrictions. I've been doing most of my imaging from my backyard, but what I'm saying is that if people are comfortable doing that, I think it's something that we could do. We might not be able to advertise it to the public, but as a private organization, maybe we can do that. We would need a legal opinion on that. But all I'm saying is that there are ways to get together to show people how to do some of the more technical aspects of astrophotography, either via Zoom or some sort of social distancing event. And I would turn to Joe and Don and the others to say whether we could do that and how we would pull that together. I would just volunteer to be a part of
That sounds great,
I
Don.
have,
We've already let a couple events happen up at VBAS with the scout troop. We approved it. I don't know when it's happening. Was this weekend or not? We let a couple events happen, almost sort of private shows, kind of. So I think we're starting to loosen up on our restrictions as long as people are taking proper precautions. We're not going to open up to the public for planetarium shows yet, but I think, correct me if Don, you got a different, Don Martin's got a different opinion, but as our president, but I think we're starting to get to the point where, if people are comfortable doing it, with social distancing and whatever precautions are in place at the time, that we can do that.
Yeah, my take on all of this stuff is that I think people tend to be overreacting to this, but Jeff Delmas made the comment, we don't want to lead on this. We don't want to be the first ones to open up and find out we're wrong. I mean, we're just a little astronomy club. There's no point in turning a star party into a super spreader event. I don't think that would happen personally, but I also don't think that it's important enough that we should be taking a chance with something like that. So my take on it is that although I'm skeptical of a lot of the stuff I'm hearing, I'm not going to go out on a limb and countermand anything that the government is saying. So we just need to be more cautious than the recommendations that we're getting from community leaders and things like that.
FYI, U.S. Space and Rocket Center is starting up their planetarium shows on the weekends.
Are they really?
Yes.
I know movie theaters are, but they're probably doing it. They're probably keeping people like 5 seats apart and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know I mean, the difference between them and us in terms of public planetarium show is that we have a tiny little planetarium. And if we go down to 25% capacity and, keeping groups apart.
Well, we rarely get more than 25% capacity anyway. It's pretty rare that we get more than 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
but every once in a while you do have a full house. I mean, I've came over there and I would, yeah.
And our Christmas shows are typically at maximum capacity. So that becomes an issue. But, movie theaters are opening up. I went out to a movie about 4 or 5 weeks ago with my daughter. And, the other thing that I'm noticing is that when you go out to like the Target parking lot or the Walmart parking lot, they're full. I mean, they're the way they were a year ago. It's exactly the way it was before this whole COVID thing started. So, I think, and I guess that's a good thing because it means the economy is starting to open back up again. So I hope that's a good thing. I mean, obviously, I don't want anyone getting sick. But
Don, I'm not advocating that we.
I also think that.
Don, I'm not advocating that we do anything that would be contrary to, the restrictions that the state has in place. All I'm saying is that there are ways that we could still get together as a group, share thoughts.
Right.
Mentor one another, teach one another. We can do that via Zoom or a social distancing event. And all I'm saying is that I'm willing to do that at the next SIG if we get some clear weather. Joe, maybe we get together and try to pull something together. I'd be more than happy to help you with that. Just let me know.
Zoom has really proven to be a boon to us for a number of reasons. After we get past all of this stuff, I think we're still going to be meeting by Zoom. I think the board meetings by Zoom is great. I think that the SIG and all of that, I think it actually works better because people can hook up their computers and they can share their screen and you can actually do a better job. I mean, it's nice to get together with people, but from a practical standpoint, these Zoom meetings are working better, in my opinion, than actually face-to-face meetings for certain aspects of what we're trying to do. Obviously, it doesn't build friendships, but what it does do is it allows us to actually share our computer screens and show our projects and things like that. So, and after we're done with all this, I've already spoken with Chris Barrow about this. He's got a camera that we can borrow and test out some of these ideas. And one of the things we want to do is we want to do live streams of our shows in the future. So, for example, will we have a members meeting or something like that? we'll have a speaker, and we'll have a camera on him, and we will live stream it so people who live in Athens or further away will be able to take part in our meetings and see what's going on and ask questions and do all of that stuff. So we're hoping to keep this going to some extent, but obviously it would be nice if we could get together. I mean, it's going to be, it's unfortunate that we're probably not going to be able to have our Christmas party this year, but that's the way these things go. So anyway, this has really turned out to be great. I think we've probably had like 60 to 80 people outside of the board and outside of the regular attendees showing up today. It's been pretty remarkable, all things considered. And congratulations to Eric. You know, Eric really snatched a victory from the jaws of defeat on this thing. It really worked out well. I mean, congratulations, David. I mean, I don't know why I said David. Eric.
Well, terror is a great motivator when you haven't the slightest idea how to organize something like this, because we've just gone to a virtual event and nobody knows actually how to put one on, and we have no content. It really lights a fire under your butt. So you can attribute it to terror and working from home. I can get a lot more done when I'm not actually in my office.
You know something? I agree. I get more work done from home than I get in the office. But anyway, the other thing is, what we were going to do tonight is if it was clear, is we were going to have a virtual star party, and we may still be doing that in the future. So please stay tuned to everything, to what's going on here, because we still may be doing virtual star parties where we put a camera on the 21-inch. It's a clear night, and Jeff, who's the master of the 21, points it to M16 or to whatever, and we can share that image with you even while you're at home. And also the Saturday night shows, we can do the Saturday night shows live, so that if you're a member but you live in Athens or Decatur, or maybe you live up in Nashville, or you live someplace. We've got members all over. We've got a member, believe it or not, this sounds crazy, in Esterville, Iowa, which is the town that my grandmother lived in. She passed away when she was 109 years old, and she lived in Esterville, Iowa. And this guy, he knows my cousins, he knows my family up there. I have no idea how this connection got made, but he's up in Esterville, Iowa. He was a longtime member of VBAS, and I guess he retired and he moved back to his hometown, and he's a member now, and he joins the SIG and some other groups once in a while. It's really remarkable. We've got people all over the country now that are joining our SIG and joining our country. I got an email from someone, a postal mail, a check from somebody who's he's in Tuscumbia, and he just joined our club. And he's down in Tuscumbia, and I think that's because of the Zoom meetings, all of this stuff that's going on online. I think that really benefits us in a lot of ways. It really expands our reach into the community and the neighboring communities and so on. Anyway, again, congratulations to Eric for snatching victory from the jaws of defeat.
Yeah, thanks for all you did, Eric. Appreciate it.
Great job, Eric.
And thanks to Joe for organizing the evening portion of all of this stuff too. Joe, you did a really great job. This is really, really excellent.
Good stuff. I appreciate all the presenters who put everything together. You know, everybody's a volunteer and doing this on their free time. You know, so especially you know, like Jared's planetarium talk that he's been putting together the last couple months. He puts something like 6 hours into that 8-minute video that he produced. That's really dedication, and it comes across too because it's very, very professional. So I appreciate that everybody, you know, put the time and effort into it, and I actually am really shocked and pleased that so many people hung around for much of the day's events. When I thought about the prospect of, you know, 9 hours of content, I thought there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to fill up 9 hours of content. I hope the sky is clear, etc. And when it came down to it, and I started getting responses back from people, we had a lot more than 9 hours of content we could have had. We could have had longer talks on most of the talks, et cetera. So I was asking people to kind of condense it down to, a little more bite-sized pieces versus, a full-length dissertation. So there's more content we could have had and more ideas. We just didn't have time to get together. So, it's really testament to the whole club and the whole, society that we've got enough dedicated folks who can put together content and are passionate about these topics and sharing with other people, that we're able to pull this off. So.
And could I jump in again, Eric? One more thing is we have been toying with, now this is not to dump anything on anybody in particular, but we have been toying with the idea of doing our regular astronomy day in April, or maybe we'll just do a Starbecue. But the Starbecue is basically a star party with a barbecue. So in the afternoon, we have a barbecue, and we bring in hamburgers and hot dogs, and we have a big party and everything. And typically we have traditionally we've had student speakers speak at that. I don't know what we'll do this year, but and then after that we have a star party at night, and we've been doing it the last 2-3 years. And so stay tuned for that, because like I say, I think April's a good time to do that, because the cold weather is over. People want to come out of their house and they want to do something. And I think it's a good time to get people to remember how to get up to VBAS. Remind them how to get to VBAS. Get them into the habit. Get them going on this stuff, and bring your families out, and let's have an outdoor party, hamburgers, hot dogs, and all of that stuff, and then a star party at night. I think it's a great thing to do in the spring. First thing.
Can I have a little time to talk to Tim Weaver?
I guess. Go ahead. What do you got?
Tim? Tim, I want to ask you about spectroscopy. Hello? Tim? Are you there, Tim?
Tim was having trouble with his audio earlier, Doug. Let me just say something else to everybody out there. We have these SIGs now. We're starting to organize these little SIGs, okay? And one of them is the first Friday, which is, I think we're going to have to rebrand it as the Observer SIG. And then the second Friday is the Astrophotography SIG. And I've been trying to organize actually a couple of other SIGs. One of them is the Spectroscopy SIG, which could also be kind of connected with maybe a variable star SIG or a photometry SIG. We could maybe take all those guys and combine them together. There's been somebody else who's talked about a radio astronomy SIG. If you guys are interested in radio astronomy and you want to do something like that, send me an email. And then another idea I had, and I don't know how many people who are on here would be interested in leading this, but I was also thinking about maybe having a special interest group for, let's say, young ladies or girls, females in astronomy kind of a thing, and let them get together, just let girls get together and talk amongst themselves and do their thing like that. So anyway, that was another idea I had in mind. So if anybody's interested in volunteering for that, it would have to be a woman probably. But other than that, that was the other thing I was thinking about doing. But anyway, Doug was going to talk about the, I'm guessing the spectroscopy SIG, and Tim is, I think Tim was interested in that too. Tim, can you unmute? Is it possible for you to unmute? And I guess it's not. Okay, anyway.
Oh, Don?
Yeah, go ahead.
For the women's group, for the women's SIG, Jenna or Beth Barrow would be good leaders for that.
They would be great leaders for that, but they're also doing, and Jenna in particular does an awful lot already. I mean, I would certainly welcome them, but it would also be nice to get some fresh blood in here.
Well, I'm not sure I know of another woman that would do it, but.
Well, I saw people online tonight.
Yeah, that would be good.
So I'll just put an announcement in the newsletter and see what we can do about it.
But both Jenna and Beth would be real good leaders for that. But if you got somebody
they're
that's
already doing stuff, and I don't want to dump it on them.
Well, okay.
In fact, I was really impressed by Beth's talk on micrometeorites today. That was really exceptional. She really did a good job on that. We've got, that's the other thing I want to say. I know I'm kind of boasting about VBAS here, but we have got a really remarkable collection of talent in this organization. It's really remarkable. We've got professional teachers, professional engineers, professional scientists. You heard during Fred's talk, Gerald Fishman. You heard him mention Gerald Fishman, and he was in one of those images. That guy is world famous. Do you guys realize that? He's a member of our club, and in fact, when he won the Shaw Prize, he came up to VBAS, and he gave us a check for, I think it was $100. And I don't know that he's ever been properly thanked. I mean, I thanked him at the time, but he's a remarkable guy, and we've got a lot of remarkable people in this town that we can draw on, and this is really a remarkable club for a small town to have have a club this large. This is really striking. VBAS is really a great organization in a lot of ways. Anyway, I don't know if anybody else has anything to say, or we're going to wrap it up here. I think it's almost 10 o'clock. Eric, you still out there? You must be.
Yeah, I'm still here. I already thanked everybody for participating, and also I'll echo that again. I do definitely think we've learned quite a bit about how to operate on the virtual environment, which will bode well for the future, as you were saying, Don. If we have mixed meetings in the future where people can be up at VBAS itself, but we are streaming it live, we can bring in a wider audience, a wider group of people that participate, because there's times when you just can't make it up to the mountain, or the weather's terrible, or whatever, where that would be beneficial. I think it's important that we kind of get into the digital age here and know how to produce, short videos like the ones that Jared's been producing are really great. If we can get our presence out there a little more on the digital world and the YouTube channels and whatnot, I think that helps draw in the younger folks who are interested in, who digital natives who if you don't have a presence and you don't have these kinds of things, you don't really exist to them. So, it's a good way to bring in that younger crowd who could participate through, those means and get an interest in a greater interest in astronomy. Like I said in my talk way back 1:30 or so this afternoon, seems like a lifetime ago now. Like von Braun himself, he had that early interest in astronomy as a hobby, and then he got into rocketry as a professional, engineer, and spent all those years doing that. And it was not till a kid approached him that he really got back into the amateur astronomy area, and it was a great passion for him that lasted the rest of his life. He was doing exactly what Don Reed was talking about, challenging himself with astrophotography once he moved up to Washington D.C. area. So it's a cross-generational thing, and it's great to be able to learn these things later in life yourself and be able to transfer some of that knowledge to some of the younger folks, and I think that's what the club has going for it as opposed to an organization like the Space and Rocket Center, where, you know, it's a big institution and, you know, there are all kinds of rules, and to be a volunteer even you have to go jump through a bunch of burning hoops and so on and so forth. And it's, you know, it's just not the same as here. You can, you know, you could find out we exist yesterday and have been giving a presentation today. You know, you can really participate directly, and I think that's really what distinguishes us and makes it so much fun, because you never know who's going to show up at the next meeting. It could be, you know, a teenager who gets mentored by the group, or it could be a world-class scientist from NASA walks in the door and wants to join our club because they also enjoy observing. It's really cool to meet this huge cross-section of people and be able to, you know, get to know them and learn from them, and just go out and have fun too. Just, you know, these observing events where Messier marathons or whatever, just being out in the field, you know, looking at the stars, not by yourself. There's been lots of times when I've gone out observing by myself, and you know, you hear noises out there in the woods, and you're like, what the heck is that? I don't want to know what that is back there in the woods. I hope it's, you know, not coming for me, or gonna, you know, buck gonna come and knock my telescope over or whatever. It's nice to have a group of like-minded people who you could do things with. So I think that's the real strength of VBAS, and you know, you just have to look at the presentations today and the level of interest today for a club of our size to see how strong that is, even during a pandemic like we've got going on here.
Can you do the bedroom light? I think so.
So I'll get off my soapbox, and maybe we should open up to folks who haven't said much lately. Does anybody else have any comments as we?
I've got one comment.
Go ahead, Doug.
With more precipitation by people, we now have a lot more people we can twist their arms to be president, vice president, and past president. Tom doesn't have to be president forever anymore.
Wait till we join them up as a club before you say that out loud, though. They're not supposed to hear that. But you're right. I mean, the more bodies we have, the more, you know, the more the merrier on these things. You know, like as I said earlier, Don Martin there is our president. He's our vice president. He's our newsletter editor, and he runs a SIG. So, I mean, I know he loves doing the things he does and being a part of all this, but, you know, it'd be nice if he didn't have to do everything.
Yeah, I like to say that VBAS is like a Baptist church. If you show up twice, they give you something to do.
Probably best not said out loud, though. So, yeah, this has been really great. I appreciate everybody's participation in it. And if you haven't bought your T-shirt, go out there and get your Astronomy Day T-shirts. If you haven't looked at them, they're really cool. Same company we had in the past putting them out. We get a few bucks from it, not a whole lot, but you know, it's nice to support the Green Pea Press as well. They're, you know, a small business over in Low Mill, and they've supported us in years past. It's nice to support them as well, as all, you know, local small businesses are struggling these days. And there's the Huntsville Science Festival. Joe, the guy who's running that Huntsville Science Festival, actually sent me one of the videos in case we needed some more content. And it's a program about the Mars rover. So if you haven't gone out and looked at their website to see all the cool stuff that they got coming up this week, it's really quite a breadth of different talks that they've got. There's one about dinosaurs. There's something about, you know, the behavior of squirrels in your backyard. There's this one on the Mars rover. There's a lot of really cool talks about a wide range of topics. And, you know, unfortunately they had to go virtual like us, but I believe this is something they're hoping to do every year here in Huntsville. And he was telling me he was the one who organized the show in Las Vegas, and I guess it started about 10 years ago. It started out with 1,000 people or so, and Vegas is a couple million people.
Thank you for doing
city.
that.
And by the time that he left, they were up like 10,000 people or so
Look at that.
showing up
Yeah.
at this thing. So
Maybe I'll say.
that is going to be a nice activity for Huntsville in the
Don't
future.
have to worry about bulbs anymore. And it's
So I definitely encourage you to look them up and
without the light.
they got going on this week. And they do have that fundraiser where they're auctioning off a really cool painting. If you got a lot of money that you haven't earmarked for your next telescope, I think the bidding starts like $850, but it's an amazing painting of Jupiter, the swirling clouds on Jupiter with its moon.
Have to worry about
floating above it, and it's by a world-class artist who's got Smithsonian and so on. So,
all right. Well, good luck, Mr. Doug. Okay.
All right. So, any other final comments before we shut this thing off? All right.
Yeah, I just want to say buy T-shirts. If we don't sell 24 T-shirts, is it 24?
24.
If we don't sell 24 T-shirts, they aren't going to make any of them. So I've already given them, I think, $60 for T-shirts. So please buy a T-shirt. Let's get us up to 24 or something. How many did you buy, Eric? You said there were 10?
I bought 7 because I said I'd buy them for all my family members.
Do we have
wanted
anything
them.
on the number we've sold so far?
We had sold 10 as of a couple days ago.
Okay.
So
Well,
hopefully with today, we've gotten some more.
The shirts are great. The only thing is they're small sizes, so get a size larger than you would normally get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they did a nice job on the ones in the past, and I still got mine from the last 3 years, I believe. And yeah, they're good shirts. So
They're good shirts, and it's fun when we were in the field last year. They made them, and you could actually watch them make your shirt. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's good advertising for VBAS because remarkably, you walk around town and there's a lot of people who have never heard that we exist, even though they've been up to the state park and so on, and drove right past the signs without even giving it a second thought. So it's good advertising for us to be out there in town wearing a shirt with our logo on it. So encourage that. All right, 9:59 on my clock. It seems like an apt time to shut her down.
I was impressed that you did this. This is very, very amazing. Anyway, all right, I'm going to go ahead and kill the meeting now. Okay.
All right, thanks. Let me stop the recording.